Dr. Burnett, welcome to People in Legal.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great conference.
Yeah, amazing. Beautifully organized, great energy in the room over the last 2 days, and a lot of stylish shoes.
Absolutely. Would you introduce yourself to our audience?
So I'm Dr. Bernadette Hyland-Wood. I am a research fellow at Queensland University of Technology. I am the co-leader of the Data Science and AI in Society program at the university, and I have taught computational methods, data analytics, data visualization, largely to postgraduate students, many of whom are culturally and linguistically diverse. These days, I do a lot of research with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Community Health Service up in Brisbane called AICS, and recently just started a project that was funded by the Australian Research Data Commons around advanced analytics and AI.
Brilliant. And you were just actually running a panel from the conference just now, and some interesting things come out of that panel.
Yeah. So a lot of really interesting things have come out in the last 2 days, where it's been predominantly legal professionals in industry or in law firms, small through international law firms. And one of the things I noticed in particular yesterday when we were doing more roundtable workshop was the pervasive use of Microsoft 365. And in particular, people saying they were relying on Copilot. And so Copilot, if you recall, was probably the shiny new thing, the new kid on the block about 2.5 years ago. Today, it is something that I think we can, if we're exercise good judgment, can use very effectively. But it is important to note that Microsoft 365 is running across all of your structured and unstructured content in your MS 365 environment. Your email, spreadsheets, Teams, SharePoint, everything. So if an organization has specific policies around, you can use it for specific use cases, and here's how to use it, such as generating source code, creating images, generating answers using publicly available information on the web, possibly speeding up legal research and client brief prep when working with non-confidential data, or task management, such as summarizing internal meetings, to-do lists, and tracking project workflows. That's a really good use of Microsoft Copilot. However, it's very easy to accidentally submit personally identifiable or confidential information in it, and then you've contaminated it. And in a law firm in particular, you have, in theory, you hopefully have your matters encapsulated so that that doesn't leak and spread to other matters. You wouldn't want to be informing guidance to customer A or client A using information from client B. So they have to pay particular attention to that whole segregation and not commingling data, which in a Copilot environment, very challenging to do.
Yes.
So we called out some of those things.
Definitely sounds like it. Things can go wrong, I guess, sometimes.
Yes. High-risk use cases where people haven't used Copilot well could include prompting with privileged client content. For example, asking Copilot to rewrite or summarize or analyze internal matter files of litigation docs. Even if it's secure, which oftentimes Microsoft sales folks will say it's secure, the prompts or the outputs could be caged, or there could be log files that are shared or analyzed in another location, or accessible within the tenancy, within that Microsoft tenancy, which poses legal risks. So that's what we shared, and discussed that a little bit more. Using Copilot to compare contracts or documents that have sensitive clauses, pretty problematic. So we just kind of warned people about that.
How do you actually fix this problem? How do you actually regulate this? What's the solution to it, like across the board?
Yeah, so I think regulation is always, we want to regulate high-risk applications of AI that could range from things like medical devices, self-driving cars, all the way through the application of AI for, say, decision-making involving marginalized people or First Nations people in any country, but here in Australia with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, that's a high-risk application of AI. So regulation is good and appropriate in those kinds of applications. Within a firm or an organization, and I work in an organization with 50,000 people, employees and students, faculty members, it's really a lot has to do with education. A lot has to do with very clear examples. Here's how you can use it. Here's how you cannot use it. Let's get practice in our tutorials, or let's get practice in our day-to-day research of how to do it transparently and responsibly. And be transparent, because there's a lot of, like when I first taught in 2023, the responsible use of Gen AI tools, at the end, the students said to me, oh, it was a bit of a relief. I learned what I could do this for because I felt a bit dirty or ashamed about that I was using it. I didn't know if I could be using it. And there was also a lot of fear within the institutions themselves. Some universities were saying we have a no AI policy, and others like me are saying, no, it's a tool we should be training you how to use responsibly because you're going to use it in the workforce. And there's also a lot of fear, and we touched on this in the conference, and it crosses genders and cultural backgrounds and ages about, I'm worried I'm getting overly reliant on it. Which is a very interesting one, is I'm kind of worried that I'm not developing the skills or maintaining the skills that I need to have and responsibly.
When I went through, I'm an accountant by trade, and I learned how to do, the calculations and things like that manually before we actually put them into a program. How do you take people through that whole manual process and understand the mechanisms, the mechanics there?
Yeah, it's a real worry. And one I've heard somebody from fairly senior within the Queensland government say, we are using automation and AI-powered tools to do a lot of the things that more junior public servants used to do. They're not developing those skills because we're automating them. So now they don't have an opportunity to sort of cut their teeth on the processes and the workflows that maybe 5 or 10 years ago they would have. So it is a real issue. And there's a real issue of us not being critical. And, especially if English isn't your first language, what we're finding with the students is, the students that I would have who are, say, 23, 24, 25 years old, they've had throughout their whole high school career and undergraduate career tools like Google Translate, DeepL for language translations. They've gotten used to that. And so there's kind of a very small little leap they have to make to prompting a Gen AI tool that spits it out in English. They had no way 5 years ago or 8 years ago when they were using these tools and typing in their native language of Bossa or Spanish or Mandarin. They had no way to know whether this was a good quality translation, nor do they have necessarily a particularly good way to rigorously check the output from Gen AI. So it's a real problem, this over-reliance of Gen AI.
How do you actually maintain that critical thinking and that grassroots learning in terms of actually mechanics of doing a task, reviewing contract, or actually drafting documents up, versus using AI?
Well, what I will say is it's definitely not set and forget policies. It can't be just policies that people are referred to a URL. So you should be able to, you need to review that. It has to be continuously updated training. Could be on a monthly basis. They don't get access to tools until they've done the training and demonstrated a proficiency in it. And one of the participants at my roundtable yesterday, Tracy, mentioned the importance of making training fun, right? So we've all been on airplanes where we hear for the 1,000th and first time how to click on a seatbelt. But Virgin Australia did something really clever a number of years ago. They made it really hip and fun and cheeky. And, you paid attention and you watched this the fun riff on how to click your seatbelt in and what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do on a flight. We need to do the same thing with the use of Gen AI tools in the workplace, whether you're a researcher, whether you're a junior associate or an associate in a law firm or a partner in a law firm. We've got to make it fun. We've got to make it part of our culture, cheeky, engaging, and not have people fear. If you put your knowledge down in a document, we're now going to feed it into the LLM and, take your job away. Because a lot of young people have a lot of fear around AI. My students who were master's degrees in digital communication said, you can really put a lot of stuff into these tools and generate copyright and images. My job's going to go away. So we have to really allay those fears. It's a tool that'll help us. It can make us more efficient, but it can't be left to do the work. We always have to have, in many cases, a human in the loop or human-controlled oversight of the outputs of Gen AI.
It sounds like the sort of leap to pick another sort of parallel situation, like when Canva came along and graphic designers looked at that and went, oh, we're finished. But graphic designers, this is a tool we can actually add more value on top. The same with accountants when they had automated cash books and automated computerized accounting packages, they actually added more value.
Absolutely. And one of the things I think we're becoming already attenuated to is we can already tell when something's been it's Gen AI output. Certainly as an educator, I can read an essay which is so fluent but it's very superficial.
Yeah.
And I can immediately say this has been generated by AI. Or job applications. So I use it. I've used it for job applications. A colleague of mine in a recent using AI for research and in work, she did a segment on how she's used it for job applications. And I realized she and I are at very different points in our career, but in both cases, the language was very similar. And so on one hand, it kind of degendered both of us and made us sound, to be honest, a bit more like a guy, which was interesting. Both of us said we would never talk about ourselves that way as a woman, but it kind of took that modesty or deprecation out of the application and it was a bit more bold, but it made us both sort of sound a bit the same. So it's interesting. We as humans, I think we'll always be able to detect genuine human creativity and ingenuity. Using it for things like recipes or movie recommendations or new concepts or defining terms, great, have at it. But when it comes to nuanced engagement, nuanced juxtaposition of resources or research or new research, it's an assistant, it's a tool. And we always have to exercise our human judgment and expertise.
I guess from a point of view, I'm thinking about your suburban type law firm, like your 20 to 50 person law firm that's actually out there, or even probably most law firms are much smaller than that. But how can they ethically use AI and how can they maintain a situation where they're using it the best possible way, the best reasons?
Well, it's a great question. And it was talked about a lot during the last 2 days because, Gilbert and Tobin's a large law firm. Yep. They have a partner who's the head of knowledge management and innovation. And one person said, listen, 80% of law firms and businesses for that matter in Australia are small to medium-sized enterprises. They don't have people who are monitoring all of this. They don't, in many cases, even have a board. So I think a lot of this will come down to communities of practice, health of great educational resources from Coursera, edX, etc. on the web and YouTube. So availing yourself of those higher quality resources on how to use these. The government does have a role in supporting small business and communities of practice are very, very valuable for this kind of stuff because, there's a lot out there. We just have to be careful that people don't unintentionally use these tools in their enthusiasm and accidentally give away their IP or their ICP IP.
I mean, should the industry bodies, they got a role in regulating, I guess, the way that the members use AI?
Well, I think they can do things by bringing together regulators. For example, I was part of a workshop, Chatham House Rule, about 30 regulators from the state of Queensland, and I think perhaps a few federal regulators attended. And it was just ask openly questions. No question is a stupid question. And that was a really great experience. And people all left that after the morning. And it was facilitated by a colleague of mine, Marco Fami, who was leading the community of practice for AI for the Queensland government. That person's been supported now by Clem Wong, where we have a very big community of practice within the Queensland government. Over 200 people or 300 people come on a regular basis to this community of practice that's online. I think it might be the last Monday of the month. Okay. But taking that big tent approach, supporting one another, sharing resources on things that are pre-competitive, super important.
Yeah, brilliant. If there's one takeaway you'd like people to go away from a conference with, what would it be?
Well, I think the power of one or a small number of women in particular. I think the superpower in Australia is actually the generous nature of women in tech. 27 years ago, I had recently come from Silicon Valley and I looked around as a young software engineer and I said, where are the other women engineers? Where are you? And I had like a few friends and we got together and we started this little group called Women in Technology.
Brilliant.
And it was based in Queensland. And now 27 years later, we're over 11,000 members. It's Australia's largest professional network supporting women in information technology and healthcare research. And we have some principles, which I shared at the end of my panel talk from Women in Technology that I wanted to pass on to Women in AI Summit. And that is, we lift each other up. We're stronger together. We are inspiring excellence. We are the change, and we are future focused. Right. And that has been the basis of a lot of very, very powerful recognition of change agents in rural and regional areas. 3 years ago, we introduced a First Nations Changemaker Award. We have rising stars in research and tech excellence, established entrepreneurs, and extraordinary women in the area of research excellence in Queensland. I feel really proud to have been a co-founder and part of that. And
it's amazing.
Yeah, each year we have an awards ceremony, and it's like or gala event, and it's 800 people,
Yeah.
90% of whom are female.
Fantastic.
Really great, from all different backgrounds, all different parts of the world, all different language groups. It's amazing.
That's amazing what you've done and what you brought in the industry. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it.